We're good. Okay, good evening. Welcome to our city council meeting for Wednesday, February 25th. We're going to start out 1.1 review of this evening's agenda. Because we have a guest here, on 2.4, we're going to move that up so you don't have to wait around long. So we'll move it right to the beginning to 2.1. Move that up. Any other changes on the agenda tonight? Okay. 1.2 future agenda items.
Strategic plan, you all had asked for that to come back, and Nathan and I were talking about it yesterday and talked about, you'll just have a very basic staff report in the council packet for next time. But we wanted to talk about, just give you a heads up, it will be at the next meeting, so start thinking about those goals that you'd like to set as a council, so we get some really good discussion next time.
And I think kind of what we were talking about, Tara and I have been offline a little bit. I think this is really, we've got this plan, right, just the services and all that, but Tara had some good ideas, like, what are some 3 things we could coalesce around, like the athletic complex? Let's find financing for the first phase. Let's figure out the trash situation. So those kind of goals they're still within that, but these are 3 goals that we're, like that way if we see legislators or we're in some spaces, we know those are the things we're bringing up, like.
Yeah.
So we're not like, it's not a whole plan, it's just 3 or 4 goals that we can all.
Yeah, I liked what Matt said about like things that we can particularly influence, and what you said about talking points. When someone says, what's going on at the city? Well, here's 3 things we're working on.
Yeah, they hear the same message.
Yeah. I think that would be helpful. I've just started a little list in my phone, like I'd encourage you to like just jot some stuff down or.
So it's not really a whole plan, but just some goals that we can all.
And then we as staff need to know, so we can plan on what our tasks are to help you achieve
Yeah.
your goals as a council.
Well, and I really hope it's stuff that's already in the plan, it's just like things to highlight, so.
Okay, perfect.
Future agenda.
Do you want me to hit it
Yeah,
up?
go ahead.
I think we're all been a little bit caught up on the trash. We're gonna bring Wooford back. The bill is now on a reading calendar, but outside of that even, there's discussion now about we need to have, so this needs to be in a future, what does that look like? So I think I'd like to put some questions out there that I have, and that if you guys have questions, so which staff can be ready. So you guys have any questions or?
So, quick recap, I had called and wanted to speak to, and you were gone that day, but we had a follow-up meeting with some of the Woodford people. They now want to find a mutual agreement to go forward rather than doing an RFP for the feasibility study, et cetera. Todd really led that discussion, and our feedback to them was, well, this is new and it's a good development. This is kind of what we've been asking for all along, and we're told that it's not possible. We have to go through what the statute says, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll have to bring it back to council and the information from you. So we post our agenda Wednesday night, Thursday morning. That meeting, I believe, was Wednesday sometime. So we said we would get it on our next calendar, but we don't have an agreement to really look at for this meeting, so we'll get it on future agenda for our next council meeting to consider, basically a placeholder to consider something if we have something to consider by then. They have a board meeting on Monday, believe it or not, it's March. It's March 2nd. So I had phone calls with you individually and told you just be ready to give us questions. The basic things that we spoke about were they're willing to, they want to forego doing a feasibility study, just come to mutual agreement for separation. They were fine to look at whatever time frame we needed to get waste management up and running. But the question that we came back to was, well, what's the division of assets, right? Representing taxpayers who have paid into the service district. That's more than just a rate payer, right? Saying I'm done with Comcast sort of thing. Their response was, well, we can walk away from the cans, and figure out how to do branding, et cetera. And we said, well, that's a good step, but we think that there's other things we need to look at, so we bring it back to you all and get questions to bring back to them, kind of for the next time that we meet with them to see if there's a mutual agreement. I mean, I don't know if you want to take it from there as far as other assets. I mean, when you talk about assets, I mean, it could be anything from trucks, equipment, land, buildings, fund balance, et cetera, like what's a fair and equitable separation agreement for the taxpayers that have paid into all of those things.
Do you happen to know what the enactment date is for the legislation? I was just gonna look it up.
I would be May 6th.
They're interested in doing an interlocal, even once we figure out, that's what Heather told me anyways, they're interested in doing, even if we get out, they're willing to do an interlocal while we
Transition or stay
transition,
with them.
right? Cause there might be a transition time before, by the time we make that separation, and there might not be either, but they did tell me they're open to an interlocal that's outside.
So then we of course need to follow up with waste management and say, look, there's been a significant turn of events and like what's the lead time that you need to stand up?
And we get that form.
Service.
I talked to them today about it, so we're gonna set something up and start talking to them about how much lead time they need.
So those are my questions, that, you know, just all the assets, what are the assets? Is it land, is it buildings? I don't wanna take these guys, cause it's these guys, other cities and other customers, right? But I do want,
Yeah, they do need to still be viable, be able to function and provide service to the remaining members, but like the conversation was having with somebody, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but we kinda owe the due diligence to our taxpayers, right? To make sure that we represent them properly and that, so.
Yeah, I don't think we can just walk away with 5-year-old trash cans, but if we.
Mine still say solid, you know?
Yeah, mine actually, yeah, that's like recycling district, yeah. So we'd have to see what we actually paid in and what our value was to them and what we are owed. So,
One that is, this is a future item, but I mean, if things are moving, this is our chance to talk about it a little bit, so tell me if I'm out of bounds on any of these things, but it's a little bit different animal than say Slovisa as a service district, UFSA as a service district, but with both of those, when we leave, right, their assets and liabilities, UFSA, we had to assume liabilities. I'd have to think that if we had any, if there were any, that they would want us to take those with us. Same goes for assets. Some of those separations, we had multi-year agreements with both of them for us to pay our share of liabilities or them to pay us our share of assets. So it doesn't have to be this is what it is and they have to write a check sort of thing. I think there's a number of different ways to come up with what's fair, reasonable, and realistic to do.
Are there much liabilities?
Fortunately, they're not carrying any debt, right, which were that was a significant issue that we had with UFSA. We had a lot of debt for buildings that we had, I've said this before, we've paid for Station 123 probably 3 times over, because we were part of the district when they bonded for those, so they don't have those things. I mean, the recent budget, you saw them come and present, not too long ago, that their current budget, they're buying many new trucks for millions of dollars, et cetera. Again, our residents have paid into that pool as well as all the other things, so there's a lot that we don't know when it comes to any of those things, and I don't think that they really know for sure yet either, so.
Yeah, to give you an idea, there was a 2024 study that financial study that went through a whole auditing process. In that study, there were 27 in assets and like 3 or 4 in liabilities. So the net overtures were 24 million. And that was, a couple of years ago. That might have been 2023, but anyway, we would need to figure out how, I think that's gonna be the most difficult aspect to navigate through, cause we can't really just take land. How does that look? How can we ensure that they can continue to operate and not be harmed by the withdrawal, but also we're getting our fair share of assets that we can then utilize.
Just looking at it from a standpoint of, if there's liabilities that we're responsible for, that we can basically say in exchange for the land, you forgive us of the liability. And, it sounds like there's not a lot of liabilities there to work with that, so
Yeah,
it's
I
gonna
think
be.
it's more assets, but there's a lot of illiquid assets. So, like I said, it's kind of in reverse, so that might be a multi-year agreement like that. something like that, or maybe, and like I said, what's fair, reasonable, but also realistic to do.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I don't wanna necessarily go that far, but there's that realistic part of it that we have to consider.
For sure.
Yeah, if this was a dissolution, it would be much easier, cause then we would look at the proportionate share each municipality is a part of the district and then divide the assets accordingly. I think we're right around 30%. And that would be really easy to divide. But we're not in that situation and they do need to continue to operate, so we'll try to explore some ideas and present some options for the council at the next meeting. But we're gonna need a lot more information from the district at the same time, cause we don't, yeah.
Do you think you can get it on the next meeting, maybe?
We'll put a placeholder on,
That's
we don't know what kind of data we'll have yet.
We won't have an interlocal, or I think it's more of a lengthy discussion rather than any action.
We can just put something out there, probably don't have a whole lot of information, because we don't have it yet.
Just not sure what my questions would be until we have the.
Something to
Yeah,
consider,
just like,
really,
so
right?
like I feel like I would like to ask questions, but I don't know what questions to ask at this point.
So I'll continue to try to keep you updated individually as we put some things together and have some more discussions with them.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other future agenda item?
No, I'll have a topic for close though. There's an update on it. So let's see. Yeah. For one of my districts.
I don't know if we,
Fantastic.
cause it,
I'll
it's not
talk-
related to the city per se.
Maybe you
I'll
should
talk to you
jump
off,
to
yeah, prior
Todd
and
and
see if we can
it's
do
something.
closed.
I do have a litigation update for closed, but, let me look into the one that you're talking
If
about.
it's all,
Okay. Council discussion of future citizen recognitions.
What about that? Right there, here.
You can bring him in, it's a big deal. Yeah, let's reach out. He lives in Syracuse.
Oh. Interesting.
Dad's a military guy. We'll talk, we'll watch.
I was up in this neighborhood yesterday, it's an hour drive.
That's what I think we're doing tonight.
That's it.
No, I think it'd be cool, I
He
mean,
was local.
That's good, some other sports would be football.
let's see. Okay. Okay, we'll go on to 2.4 then, at this point. Review and discuss a request for an easement or revocable encroachment permit to facilitate construction of a multi-tenant sign for the Mountain Point retail development. Michael?
Thank you. Now, I do have a presentation, but it really is the same information that's in your packet. This is something that we have done occasionally, where we have an unusual relationship with the property line to the right-of-way line. The right-of-way line in this area is much wider than the actual street, which causes the sign to be set back further from the right-of-way than we typically would see. I also asked Nathan before this meeting if he had a preference on the legal instrument that would maybe used for this, and very clearly said revocable encroachment permit. That was one, we used that tool last year on a similar situation. Does the council wanna see this presentation? Do you have any questions? I just didn't know if you had a clear, maybe, position as far as trying to give the administration direction on this request.
Do you have a map in there?
Yes.
Cause the one in the packet did something weird.
So
Oh, I
this
guess that's what it
purpose-
looks like.
Yeah, so this is just an inset, this white area down here, just trying to blow up. You can see that yellow, kind of line,
Okay, so that's the 30 foot, behind the sidewalk is the 30 foot.
Right.
Okay.
30 inch. So this black line is the right-of-way line. Typically, we would see that property line be right behind the edge of the sidewalk, right? So they would just have a setback off of the sidewalk. But because of that right-of-way line is further into the property, they're asking for this opportunity from the city to have a revocable permit. When this came before the planning commission, we informed the applicant that that would be required, right? This is on city property. He would need to negotiate with the city permission to do this. So we haven't authorized this, obviously without direction from council or agreement by the administration.
So if I understand correctly, the 30-inch setback is the standard setback, we're just basically moving the line to where the property is where we usually measure it from.
Well, what we're gonna do is we would draw like a little rectangle around the area where the sign would sit. And that would be the encroachment permit, the revocable encroachment permit. That for any reason, if the city decides that that sign needs to be relocated, that's the agreement, like, it has to be we can revoke it and the sign has to be removed. So they're obviously at their,
whose expense?
that's a risk on their part, right?
Would be going to the spot where we don't.
Right.
Inches on the backside.
Okay.
It's just the right of way lines.
I don't have a problem.
And there's some topography here as well.
So the sign is strange.
Especially from, of course, Mountain View and.
Sure.
Yeah, there's definitely sloping that's happening here, yeah.
I'm fine, I think they need support in that, I mean, that area's a tough area right now anyways.
Yeah.
So I think any signage we can get them over there will help.
Yeah, everything about the sign is typical, it's just the placement of the sign. That is the exception, because of that right of way.
I don't have an issue. You okay with it?
Absolutely.
Okay with
Okay.
it? Okay,
Alright,
easy enough?
May I, as the guest, ask a question?
Yes, please.
So, let's say it being revocable, if something were to come up where the city did want it moved, what's that process like? Would I be informed or would the property owner be informed? And whose responsibility would it fall on? Like, would I have to at my incur the cost from my company to have it moved? Or would the property owner have to?
The encroachment permit's gonna be with the property.
yeah,
Okay. So is he gonna have to fill out that permit then, or, cause he's authorized me, like.
you're the agent,
I'm the
right,
agent,
acting on
yes.
his behalf, but
But when we sign it, I would think the
It'd be
property.
the
Yeah.
property owner that signs it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep, okay. Okay, let's make it happen.
thank
Okay,
you.
appreciate it, Michael. Thank you for being here.
Is it cool for me to leave, or?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Do I
Please
have
don't
to,
stay to the.
do I need to, is someone gonna reach out to me, like, on this revocable?
Michael, you'll be in touch with him on this?
Yeah, we will, we'll work on it through.
So he said, will you be in touch with him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Alright, appreciate it, guys.
Appreciate it, yep, thank you.
You gotta stay, chief, sorry.
I'll stay if you guys want.
No, I'm just making sure he was gonna follow you out.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, we'll go to back 2.1, discussion of the proposed fiscal year 27 and 28 budgets for Public Works. Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight's budget discussion is for the Departments of Public Works, so I do have them listed out here, so it includes administration, streets.
Yeah, that was awesome photo, huh?
Wendy's, you can thank Wendy for that, she's like, you should put this in your presentation, like, that is a great idea. But very true.
I love the comment from you, Highway Patrol.
It also includes fleet facilities. And then in your packet, you'll notice two staple documents. The back one is water and stormwater, and we'll get into water a little bit. They have quite a number of cost increases that we'll go through. And just as a reminder, we do have a separate meeting for capital projects, so we won't be discussing in detail capital projects, although I did wanna highlight one or two projects that are being proposed. And then once again, as you know, council, but if anyone's listening online, these are the requests from the department, so these aren't official what staff is recommending for the council to approve in terms of budgets. It's for you to see what the departments are requesting tonight. So first, we'll start with some of the easier departments. So first is the Public Works Administration. So really, their only operating increase was computer replacements. We do consider those one time so they don't roll over year to year. And then just as of note, and it's something every department does, they really do go through line by line and determine if their budget is accurate for every item. So they are proposing reductions for their cell phones, fuel, training and travel. Moving on to streets, so the budget looks a little, don't know the proper accounting term, it looks a little odd between the 2 years. So as you'll notice, there's a $1.5 million decrease in fiscal year '27. The reason for that is the streets department is requesting $1.7 million of their normal pavement management funding go for the Rosecrest Road rehabilitation. So that's actually getting moved off into capital projects because it's a significant project. Just as a reminder, they also put aside the same amount in the current fiscal year. They are requesting a sidewalk and right-of-way maintenance increase of $34,000. And then you'll also, in that top packet, there is a detailed explanation from the streets departments on why it's needed. The Cliff's Notes version is, as the city ages, our infrastructure is aging, there's more trip hazards that need to be addressed and more sidewalk and other maintenance that needs to be done.
Do they do grinding
Yes.
or as a preferred method or replacement?
Preferred method is grinding, but then if it's not in the specs of grinding, then we'll have to tear out and replace.
And then there's also another increase for road improvements of $35,000. That's outside of the pavement management. So if you include that 1.7 million we're transferring to capital projects, overall, their request is a 5.1% increase. And then 28, as you can see on the chart, there is a slight decrease in what they're requesting for pavement management, going from $3,050,000 to $2,950,000. So really in 28, their budget is flat if you combine the 2 years together. Although it is part of the streets department, we do budget street signs and street lights separately. For the most part, there aren't any major asks or requests for these two. Street signs, what I could find out an increase they were requesting was an increase in fuel and damaged signs. Of course, with the damaged signs, the cost is increased. The city also has more signage as we add more development in the city. And then in street lights, there is anticipated increase in electricity. Also, we're adding street lights, so it is also rates and additional lights. And then our contracted services, so Salt Lake County handles maintenance of our lights. We're adding more street lights both years, so that does factor into the increased cost along. And I'm sure Public Works put in a inflationary factor that the county will most likely add. Moving to snow removal and fleet. So the big topic on snow removal is Public Works has revamped their incentive program with snow plowing to encourage and incentivize employees to be available for snow events. So that overall increase is $30,000 and $30,100. And as a reminder, I didn't remember this, so I went back and looked. We did transfer the cost savings we had from last year, the budget savings we had from last year to this year, thinking we would have a normal snow year. There's still time, hopefully.
No.
We're gonna have 40-some degrees.
Okay.
Well, I'll go with the consensus of the group on that one. To cover any costs of this, so this would be to fully fund it because that one-time money will be going away. And then just to show, the overall increase is 13% in '27 and then 4% in fiscal year '28. And then fleet, Fleet overall is relatively flat, with just normal operating cost increases. As you can see in 28, they are anticipating a slight drop in their operating costs, due to some one-time training that they are proposing in 27. Moving on to facilities, there isn't a whole lot to talk about here. As you can see, overall for 27, they are proposing a 2% increase and then a 3% increase in 28. Their repair and maintenance items are requested to go up about 8,000. Some of that is due to one-time funds we transferred over for one-time repair projects. And then also utilities, increase of 9,000. One thing I did want to point out, especially since facilities doesn't have a lot of capital requests, is they are requesting 33,000 in the capital fund to replace the carpet in the community room. That has passed its useful life, and they'd be looking at other flooring alternatives, and I think at this time they haven't decided what's the best. We've talked about some different options that hopefully would keep the floor looking better for longer.
Italian marble.
I think the 33,000 might cover 3 tiles of that, but one thing I did want to comment and notice as the community center comes online is the overall expenditures for the community center in terms of not just the utilities, which we estimated about 42,000, but janitorial, pest control, 28,500. They are requesting a new vacuum carpet cleaner in fiscal year 27, and then they are requesting maintenance of the asphalt in fiscal year 28.
That's good. Were we already doing some of that because PD isn't half of it?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
So
So
that's
Kyle and I
portion.
talked about splitting this into a separate budget. Right now, it's all lumped into facilities.
Yeah.
So we need to dissect this a little bit,
Okay.
the changes.
Okay.
We'd probably pull it into its own division just so it's
Okay.
easier to track.
And Columbus is paying a portion of the utilities also. But I wanted to be transparent and clear where we're actually ramping that up for full use.
And we do anticipate using CDBG money for some of this. It's just right now with our contract ending in 2027 and us going to our own program, I don't know how those overlaps are gonna timeline, how they're gonna work with the timeline, so I'm a little nervous about depending on CDBG money for it right now.
We can't ask anybody because they're shut, that's part of the shutdown.
It's been nonstop.
Can we shut down? Are we, so that's the total facility budget for that building, 100%. And then section it off for our tenants or other uses, we'll have smaller obligations from our budget.
Correct, and just one point is that none of the facility staff's time are included in here. So if they go and fix something, right now it's just being covered under the general facilities budget.
And because we really don't know the use that we're gonna see there, we can anticipate just from the use that we have here, that I don't know how many times it's gonna be rented through the year, it's just hard
And
to tell that
repair and
first year.
maintenance and cleaning, what that looks like, yeah.
Have people expressed interest in it though?
A lot of them, oh yeah.
So moving on to water, we have a few slides on water. So I do, before we move on to some of the more detail, I do want to point out a few things. One is on the revenue side, we used the numbers that are in the water rate model. As we all know, last year was an exceptionally dry year, so relying off of trends or past consumption probably is not the best idea. And then as Justin mentioned today, we are probably looking at some heavy conservation this summer unless there is a drastic change in precipitation. So these numbers are fairly conservative, but that 11% increase in charges for services, so that's made up of that 6.5% rate increase the council approved, and then assumption of 4.5% growth, which we did meet that growth number last year. It seems aggressive, but I think it's doable with what we're doing and permits and some of the different residential and commercial items coming online. And then the miscellaneous number, while it's not as large as the charges for services, we've had more cash in the water funds. We've actually been earning more interest. I'm anticipating as we do more capital projects, that cash will decrease, and that's why it drops in '28. And then moving down, I'm actually on the expenditure side, gonna flip to the next slide. So I wanted to go through some of the significant changes or requests from water. So one is overtime is $25,500 increase. As we've discussed previously, the water department is seeing more water main breaks, which necessitate paying overtime for those call-outs to get those repaired. So that's a request to try to accommodate that overtime. And then tied with that is increasing our budget for repairs by 47,000 to help with that.
Is that just because of the age of our infrastructure or like what?
We're seeing some age of infrastructure is one thing, but we're also seeing on a lot of our service laterals premature material failures. And it's not just here, it's kind of throughout the county, and we've talked to a lot of other cities, but it sounds like it's more of just a general material issue with the services.
Can't expect things to last as long as they have.
Well, it's just that
before.
specific material that was manufactured, so, and we were using. 20 years ago, we thought it was a great material, but now we're seeing that it's not. So, we're looking into other types of materials to switch to, but we have seen in the last couple of years increased in service lateral leaks.
Have we started requiring different material on new builds or our laterals coming over?
So that's what we're looking at right now, is trying to determine which material. There are several materials out there that are a lot more expensive, but that could make a huge impact to development and then also repairs on our side too. So we're looking at what's the best option.
Go back to flex copper.
Yeah, well, there's a couple other more, instead of poly type material, it's more PEX related, like interior homes, but it's, anyway, there's a lot of detail into it, but we're looking at different options.
Then moving down, there was a request for notification and communication software that would be used in the event of water emergency or water line break or something like that. This service would notify residents and homeowners that are in the affected area. I know one of the benefits that was discussed was it would not, water employees would not have to go door to door to tell people if there's an emergency. So it lead to efficiencies that way. However, it does come with a $40,000 price tag, so.
And there's other uses for it, and we've been working with John at Communications as well of other uses, but then there's several different types with this one specific. The employees can go on GIS, draw a polygon, and they'll capture all of the people in that area. And you can send out standard notifications for if there's a water leak and the water shut down. So the people aren't calling us 6 a.m. when they wake up, they get a notification. So there's some benefits there, and other potential uses. So, it's just in the budget so that we can look at it, and if we find one, then we can potentially move forward.
Do we not employ service like that for other city notifications that can implement, or is it
It's a little
not
bit different.
capable? Okay.
Yeah, so our Everbridge system is opt-in, whereas this would have the utility
push
data
out.
preloaded.
Okay.
And would, in this sort of instance, be quicker to have more direct notification than Everbridge is.
But
Yeah.
could we use this for emergency, like the car crash fire
But yeah,
dominoes
there's
thing?
definitely, once we have their information, the other thing is this includes gathering updated information from residents as well, because we have data from accounts that were set up 25 years ago that's not accurate anymore. So this would be also gathering updated information. Like I said, there's lots of different uses.
Is there
we could
privacy
also-
issues?
Privacy, we'll have to be a little bit careful how we use it with the state rules on privacy. We can't always share even within the city across stuff, so we'll have to really look into it.
Just remember we had that big long discussion about this, right? So that'd be interesting.
And that was before they start passing all those bills up there, so we'd have to see how it works.
Hey, good job on one last week though. It was pretty quick turnaround.
And then some other unanticipated increases is I believe we will receive a fee from the Division of Drinking Water of $78,000. There is an increase request in your packet that details that out a little bit more to fund that agency that will be required of all members. And then electricity is a $30,000 increase. That's mainly due to another well coming online. Or is it 2 wells?
Well, this one's a pump station.
Okay, thank you. Can't keep them all straight. And then anticipated water purchase costs from Jordan Valley, so 1.3 million in 27 and then another million in 28. So below, I list out what the overall increases are. So it's a 13.7% increase in expenditures in fiscal year 27, and then it's a little less in 28. Actually, it's more in 28. And the overall revenue increase is 12.4. So what we do, as we've discussed before, is we compare what the request is to the water model, because we want as much as possible to stay within the realms of the water model, because that's what we're basing rates off of. So as you can see below, the requests are a bit more than what the model shows we should be spending. The model assumed we would be increasing our operating costs about 6% a year. So Public Works is aware of this, and they have identified some areas that they might be able to reduce the budget to come within that, to bridge that gap. However, at this point, city management hasn't reviewed or discussed those potential cuts with Public Works to see if they're feasible or if there's any unintended consequences that might cause more issues down the road.
What's the process for that, for like if you were going to cut out some of those to stay in a certain model, who makes those decisions?
We'll propose those to you as part of the budget, and so we'll tell you what, and then you'll adopt that, so you, or change it.
Okay.
And so ultimately, the council's going to adopt the budget. We're gonna work with them and see if we can find things that work. Alternatively, we have a really complex rate structure, I think. We have all these different things, and so the water model is trying to take all in. It could be that the model, we need to adjust it. The big number that strikes me is the amount for water purchases. I don't know how much they anticipated in there, but a lot of our new water purchases are block 2 rates or whatever they
So
call
that's a
them.
large portion of it. The Olympia area receives the block 2 rates, which are, they're probably 40% higher than our typical rates. We have set this rate structure in Olympia so that they cover those costs, but that increases our overall rate, our overall cost. The other thing is the projections on this are adding in 2025, which is a very high water use year. And so they may be artificially inflated, especially if we see a stark contrast and we start conserving in the next year or two, like we saw in 2021 and 2022.
Just to clarify, the block 1, block 2, that's a Jordan Valley
Yeah, that's
thing,
Jordan
that's
Valley.
that's not our decision.
Correct. That's Jordan Valley.
So to your original question, ultimately the council will get it. We'll bring you a proposal. We just, as we were working on it this morning, didn't have time to try and analyze it all before tonight.
How does the, no,
Sorry,
please.
one more follow-up question.
Yeah.
So is it completely funded by water fees, or is it general fund that helps fund the water budget too?
This is fully water fees, user fees paid for this.
The proposed legislation with regards to having access to state funds for the infrastructure, the 1.5%. Do we currently have access to that? How does that?
So in order, if that bill passes, HB 501, in the format that it was written as of this afternoon, I don't know if it's been amended since then, but like 3 o'clock this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to read the new one, but at that point, it's based off your median adjusted gross income number, which is the number that the state produces for the water. For Harriman, that's $75,000. So we take 75,000 times the number of connections we have, times 1.5%. And that's how much money we have to generate. And so we're not there with our rates, we would need more, 20 to 40%. I don't know how many connections.
That's a big number. To meet that number.
And the interesting thing is that if we were to do that, I don't know that we would need state money. You wouldn't certainly need a loan from the state if you had that, for us as Harriman. Now, if you were doing that to get a grant, okay, but that's a pretty steep increase. The target of that bill are the water systems. The example they use is the one who's been bragging, we haven't raised rates in 40 years, but they're asking the state to give them money to upgrade their system. It's like, you should have been raising your rates over these 40 years. That's not, yes, you can brag about it, but that's not the reason for the rest of the state to cover your system, so.
While you're bragging about it, that's the reason you don't have money to.
So for us, we would have to increase if we wanted access to those state dollars. Those increases, originally in the first bill, went to the state. In the current one, as of 3, I haven't seen the new one, but it's supposed to stay with the entity who raised them. It's just, they wanna make sure your ratepayers are covering their costs, the cost of delivering that water or.
Historically,
sewer
have we
side.
been generally doing that?
This last rate increase, the first rate increase, this water model was designed to, I think the first time to actually look at the capital replacement of items. So most of the original rate models in the city, fairly young city, we're talking about new growth and who is paying for that. Now it's starting to look at who's replacing, we've gotta replace pumps, we've gotta replace pipes, unfortunately. And then this issue with the material.
Yeah.
That, we put it in the ground 20 years ago, it'll last 100 years. Well, it's not quite 100 years, and we are struggling with that, so. Those will all be things that again, to provide the water to the home, that's what we're trying to cover.
Thank you. So question, so last year when we did the rate increase and we lowered it to our need, should we have maybe reevaluated or looked at that? I mean, I'm glad we didn't have to raise it the 13%, but it looks like we may have to do a rate adjustment again sooner than later, rather than the 6%, but I'd rather keep it low.
Our plan was a rate increase every year for the next several years.
Yeah, but we only took half of that rate increase for last year. Which is good, and I like that we can have a look to cut the budget in some critical areas or areas defined, so. I just know that we paid somebody to do the rate study and that maybe we should have followed that, but our information at that time wasn't supportive.
Well, and I think that the challenge is our expenses are growing faster than that model. And so we may, there are a couple different pressures there. Well, we may have to look at what future rates look like as we build, especially with the, what capital is necessary as you go forward. So capital being major projects and line replacements or or looping lines and things like that, so the system is more efficient and more redundant, so.
Yep.
And then did we take some state money for redoing water pipes and like the older part of Harriman?
So that was federal money,
Federal money.
Even better.
and federal money
We're so appreciative
is
of federal money.
a pain.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to use. Have we even,
We have not gotten a dime yet.
so it's a reimbursement and going through the process and they keep shutting down.
Yes, the shutting down is not helping an already overburdened department.
Yeah, so it's a difficult, that's been a difficult grant for us. It was 3.2 million, something like that. So
Different bucket of money though.
it's a big enough amount that it's generally worth it, but it's much more difficult than the last time I used the program, which was several years ago, but this one, it's been hard.
The mayor asked us today if we would like to do another one of those, and they
Did not.
quickly said, no.
Not right at the
Not
moment.
right now.
We have received state funds and grants and loans in the past, though, so we have used them.
So it's just something to consider a little bit with the
I guess
pace.
safe to say, we just need to figure out how this bill's gonna play out
I don't,
or
I don't think it gets to the Senate. I mean, we're watching it, but I don't think it gets to the Senate.
It's I think policy wise, your ratepayers, there've been some bills put in to limit like, Jordan Valley's ability to use a mill levy to pay for projects because nonprofits tend to be large water users and they don't pay. Whereas if all users pay, so there's.
The bigger issue with them bonding, they're not using it all for projects, they're using it for operations. Which should be a big no-no, and that's something the legislature definitely does need to fix.
So there'll be more, I mean, we'll have to,
just a
Councilor
letter.
Hodges was, right, we'll look at it. We may at some point have to talk about, well, what does that model look like? We may just need to refine the one we have. And, you know, maybe it's a 7.5 instead of a 6.5% at some point. But our goal is not to, sit with this gigantic reserve of people's money. It's to try and get the stuff fixed and operate in a way that's, responsible.
Thread that needle.
Moving on to the impact fee fund, there isn't too much to talk about here. They do have, requested operating cost increase, and that is mostly for title research and legal fees and other administrative tasks, that we employ consultants to do. And then on the capital outlay, as you know, there isn't necessarily an open market for water rights, so city is always looking for them. It's just dependent on if there are willing sellers in the market. We do have 4.2 million that we can actually spend on water rights. However, as you may remember, we do have that interfund loan that is paying for the Automall property. That is to be paid off in June, so the entire balance of 11.8 million will be available to be spent.
Just a nod to Sherry, just because you have a water right doesn't mean there's any water.
Very true.
So the state is bragging about buying up these water rights, doesn't mean there's any water that goes with it.
And then moving on to stormwater, as a finance person, I always love to see a negative in the expenditures column. As with every other department, they went through their budget with a fine-tooth comb, found some areas that they had budget in the past, did not need it anymore, one-time projects they had been working on. And then it is offset in the next year when they're in 28, when they're anticipating regular operating increases. They did have a small request, it's the last page for some trash pumps, but they're honestly a very small amount compared to their overall budget. But they did go through that request process, which I appreciate. With that, are there any questions on Public Works' budget?
I think we hit them all. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Kyle. Let's hit 2.2 real fast. I think we can go through that before we invite Ted in. Legislative update. Todd, you wanna bless you?
Yeah, I'll kick us off and I'll start with the most important one. HB 429. So, recently, as you know, it went to the House first, passed out of committee, 10 to 1. Went to the House floor, passed unanimously, which that doesn't happen very often. Went to the Senate committee, just this past week, and it passed out unanimously, 6-0. And now it's, currently on the reading calendar, 55.
55, I think.
So it will go through the reading calendar process, and then the Senate will vote on it. So, the quickest it may be late this week, early next week. If there's any changes that are made, then it'll push it out. We don't have much time, cause there's only next week until the end of the session, so that is where that one is at. SB 284, This is the local land use modifications. This is the land use task force bill. This one went from changing the way we look at local authority generally as it relates to land use, where we are called a home rule state, meaning that as long as the state does not tell us does not regulate it, we have discretion to regulate that area. The developers wanted to change it to a Dillon's rule state, which is the exact opposite, meaning that everything that we do comes from a rule that the legislature passes. So we got that all out early, and now this is just more or less cleanup items. Planning commissions can't be the appeal authorities. There needs to be more. It seems like a lot of it is geared at the planning commission. There needs to be additional training, what their authority is, those sort of things. Probably one more, this one's a hot topic, HB 88, this is the public assistant amendments. This one would prohibit any sort of benefits given to illegal immigrants. There are penalties for those who give the benefits, including municipal workers that are just doing their job. And that's where the concern is we don't know how far this could go. It sounded like this was more geared towards like food benefits and health insurance benefits, but the way it's defined is it could apply to almost everything, including, the Columbus Center. So, and even though we're not doing it, we have a lease agreement with the people that are doing it. So, those are the type of nuances that are gonna be really hard to navigate through, but this one is,
I didn't think the Yeti
Service
dog.
so,
As a service dog.
I'm guessing there's a few more bills that you all may want to bring up, Mayor, Nathan, Troy.
The only thing I would add to that is SB 262 by one Mr. Daniel
Did you
McKay.
talk to him? Did you get hold of him?
Not yet. He has not called me back. I will be continuing to try and talk to you, Mr. Daniel McKay, trust me. This is a bill that he is trying to push through that prevents law enforcement from using unmarked vehicles to stop cars. This would impact our duties, our responsibilities, and our abilities, period, greatly. So, for instance, if we're gonna follow a car off of a house we're investigating and we don't have a marked car, we can't stop it. It's ridiculous. It absolutely is ridiculous. It's predicated on somebody stating that, at least what I've heard from the general counsel was, unmarked cars stopping people and, sexual assaults happening because of that. We don't have any record of that happening. So, really what it is a concern of unmarked cars prowling about and maybe stopping somebody that's breaking the law.
Somebody
Which they
leave
should.
their own light on their car.
Right. Yeah, which also was, as I recall the statistics, Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 0.062% over several years of somebody using a Temu light that they ordered to stop people. So please, LELC is a full go on it to oppose it. I was thinking today as I was following a gravel truck, if it were dumping gravel onto the roadway, I couldn't stop it. So it's an absolutely ridiculous bill, so. There you go.
Anything on HB 561 that you've heard? It's the motorcycle, the e-bike motorcycle.
Maybe I'll look to Cody to answer that one. It was long and arduous as it began. I think it's gone through some amendments, as I recall. I don't know that it's answered some of our questions. It had some appealing things in there like helmets and other things, but it also allowed for people that were 16, if they had a motorcycle endorsement, to operate them on the roadway without them being licensed and insured. Is that still correct?
Yes.
Okay, so thinking about the fatalities that we've had here and in South Jordan, West Jordan, Riverton, a kid hits your car and dies without insurance. Can you imagine how that's gonna turn out for you as the motorist, regardless of who determines fault? Right, so,
One of our biggest concerns with it is it actually takes away our most effective enforcement tool right now, which is the ability to impound. And requires us to hold those and release them back to the parents at no cost. So that's basically been our only deterrent at this point in trying to regulate the use of some of these e-bikes, and that bill would take that tool away from us completely.
And quite frankly, we don't know how we would do that. We don't have equipment to impound and hold. We call somebody to do that. We don't have the ability to hold a bike until we can get a hold of mom and dad, nor do we have the manpower to do that. So I think there's some real problems with it. In my mind,
What do you think bought it for the kid and is gonna
Right.
tell you, how dare you
yeah, how dare you
hold
take
this?
that?
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, the only difference, and maybe this is the best answer to your question as you talk to the legislators on the Hill. The only difference between what we're talking about and what we've been talking about for the last 5 decades is that it's a gas engine or an electric engine. We have all the laws in place for a gas engine and need no tweaking for that.
The electric ones are more dangerous.
True, but all we would have to do is add electric to the gas provisions and we would be just fine. Instead, we're creating an entire chapter of a book for it that seems a little ridiculous to me. So at the end of the day, literally the difference is gas and electric. It's still a motor, it doesn't really matter. Add electric to the gas ordinance and you'd be fine, so. Ta-da.
It's currently on the third reading calendar at the House.
So it's still in the house.
There. And I don't know if it has wheels or not, to be honest with you.
Do you have
It does.
concerns?
Oh, it does, yes, it does. If it's on rails or not.
Pun intended.
Yeah, actually it wasn't, but now that I think about it, I should claim history on it, so I will.
Do you have concerns about HB 568, like limiting the impact fee to $50,000? I mean, it hasn't gone anywhere yet, but I assume that most of our things are more than $50,000.
Yeah, I think this one is not gonna go anywhere. But yes, we have concerns with it. There was another impact fee one on the water impact fees with the number, it would change it from the current process to, you have to look at the number of faucets.
Right.
So it's changing it from a process that we've been doing for a long time, it's not perfect, to a very not great way of doing it. I get the understanding that maybe more faucets means more impact, and that's how we should be calculating it, but the way that it's written is not the way that we should be doing it.
About the bill that was addressed, it was earlier in the session having to do with the calculations of general damages and what special damages could be considered.
Yeah, I think that SB 211, yeah, that one is moving forward, and that one's very concerning.
Is 280 also moving forward, cause
No.
that's an antithesis?
No, it's not, I just looked, I don't even think it's made it to a committee yet. Yeah, that one is highly concerning, I think if it keeps moving forward, there'll probably be an action alert from the league, cause it could potentially cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars when someone is already compensated for their injuries, and these are just phantom, the attorney and the victim do get more money, that's it, that's all it does.
And then was it 97? Is that down
We're
still?
talking, there's another sub, they just texted tonight, there's gonna be another sub with Senator Kennedy. More changes the other way. Okay, we'll keep everybody posted as we go through the last 7 days. We're not counting. Okay. We'll come back to 2.3, if that's okay, I'd like to we're at 6:30, have a commitment to Mr. Ted Knowlton. So at this point, we're gonna welcome Ted here, he's the Deputy Director of Wasatch Front Regional, he's gonna go over the transit fresh look update. Ted, welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, I appreciate that. Would you like me
Up there.
up here?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I grab a water?
Of course.
I know, it's like proper English is tough.
Okay, Mayor and Council, thanks a lot for your time here tonight. Many or all of you might be familiar with Wasatch Front Regional Council. We are a government entity. Our task is to develop the long-range transportation plan for our member communities, which includes Harriman. Member communities span from Brigham City in the north all the way to Bluffdale in the south, inclusive of Morgan and Tooele counties. And we have a council of 27, including 19 elected officials, and I'm telling you that so you understand how our decisions are made. And Mayor Palmer is one of those 19 elected officials. So you have a member on the council that represents Harriman. My purpose here tonight, as mentioned, is to just give an update on the conclusion of a transportation study that Harriman was integrally involved in called the Transit Fresh Look. And I'll try to get through this pretty quickly so that you understand, well, what are the products of this? What might it mean for Harriman? And then open it up for questions cognizant of your time. This is part of developing our regional transportation plan. This is the 30-year look. You can think of it as the place where the major roads, transit, and trails for the region are born. They start here on this plan. And the regional transportation plan is the shared product that is then implemented by UDOT and UTA and cities, essentially. But this is the place where those ideas are born. And we're 3 years out of a 4-year process in developing that transportation plan. So a number of you, if you were on the council at the end of last year, you came to a workshop where we talked about projects. And if you're new to the council, you'll be part of the process of prioritizing projects in this cycle. Now, let me get to the heart of the matter, which is the Transit Fresh Look. This is a deeper dive on public transportation in Southwest Salt Lake County, Northwest Utah County. And then the results will be folded into that regional transportation plan. This is an unusual, it's now concluded. Does that mean we can celebrate success? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. But the process is concluded. It's an unusual way of engaging in transportation planning. Briefly, it's and by the way, I'm forgetting that Jaron Robertson, the planning director with Utah Transit Authority, is online. And I don't know, Jaron, if you can say something and be heard, but I wanted to recognize him. Jaron, forgive my delay on that.
Thank you, Ted, and apologies that I'm not there, but here participating online. Thank you.
Okay. So this is unusual because typically what happens in a transportation plan is you lay out the ideas and then you test to see how feasible, plausible they are, and then you select the feasible, plausible ones, and then off you go. Those are the ones you focus on. Here we took a different approach. We asked the question, what do we want to coalesce to achieve together as communities, transportation partners, and the like? What's our vision, and what are the steps that would be needed to accomplish the vision? So it's vision driven, essentially. And that's really the key aspect about it. And it had a really robust partnership, including, of course, Harriman, but you can see all the communities, but lots of other stakeholders, legislators, some key private sector partners, all of the transportation agencies as well. And you were represented in that multi-community partnership, primarily through Mayor Palmer, your city manager, and your CED director, who were engaged in that. The last time we came to give you an update was all the way back in, I think, August of last year. So it's been a while. Others have been engaged. I know Council Member Henderson, you've been engaged in this. Lots of others around the table, Wendy, have been engaged in this as well. I don't want to sort of just think it's just the three of you. So we have landed together as a partnership on a vision, and this represents that vision. I'm going to unpack the lines that are relevant to Harriman in a little bit of detail. But you can see this. These are predominantly bus rapid transit lines. You can think of that as kind of like light rail that runs on rubber tires, but it sort of functions like light rail. There's a little bit of actual rail itself on this vision map as well, but you can see there's a lot of lines as a vision. These are the lines that relate to Harriman. The first is the idea of extending the red line from Daybreak and the lighter red line, having it come through the northern piece of Harriman before it turns into Riverton and then eventually connects onto the Bangerter Highway. So this is a big idea. It would be expensive and really fantastic if we all can work together to pull it off. This was, I would say, the number one priority of the partnership in terms of a project they want to firm up over time. And that's a big lift, and we can dig into that in a little bit of detail. That's one. Rio Tinto Loop, again on the north side of Harriman, but this bus rapid transit loop would serve the rapidly growing west of 111. I had one of those moments. West of 111 area that you're quite familiar with, and of course 118th being your northern boundary. You can see that in there as well. This is one of the key vision concepts. There's also the idea of bus rapid transit right on 118th South, right on your northern boundary. There is a cross valley connection on the Mountain View corridor that heads through pieces of quite a bit of Harriman as it heads then on into Utah County. So it ties the two valleys together. I think there was a lot of support and momentum behind this idea in the partnership. So those are the ideas. Now, I went through that really quickly, and I'm gonna do a second bite at the apple and look for any questions that you've got on these. Now, I wanna clarify again, we're talking about a vision. And so the notion here is some of these are a light lift, some of these are a heavy lift to get done. And what the Transit Fresh Look does is it lays out the vision, and then there's a corridor profile for each of these ideas that articulates some of the pieces that need to be worked on together by the partnership for those concepts that we all want to make happen. But you can kind of think of these three bins, that the next steps fall into these basic three bins. And the idea is to try to advance in a meaningful way at least two of three in order to get a concept to success. The three are raising money, regardless of source. You know, it could be federal, it could be state, it could be local. But raise some money, it could be value capture with development. One, two, land use intensification near prospective station areas, if that's something that communities want to work on. Two, and then three, transit market capture, which is a nerdly way of saying, let's get buses running, let's demonstrate that there is a market, let's get people used to riding something, even as we work up to a more mature mode of transit over time. So that's kind of what that bucket means. And so to work on at least two of the three for concepts that the partnership wants to take this vision and then advance in a meaningful way. What WFRC is going to do is convene along each of the concepts, the communities that are part of that concept, and then ask, how can we help? What can we do together to advance concepts that the partnership wants to continue to advance? That's the high level. Now, what I have left in this, and this slide I think is helpful because sometimes people, they want to know, what does it look like? What are we talking about on the land use side? What does this mean? And if we're talking about light rail, and again, remember, that's the concept of the red line extension that comes south from there into the northern part of Harriman, turning eastbound into Riverton and before it catches up onto Bangor Highway. That idea would take an average of that kind of development only in station areas, not across the entire fabric of communities, but in station areas if remember, there's three boxes to work on. There's land use, there's funding, and there's market capture. So if communities thought, well, we're gonna take it with, we don't wanna raise that much money, so we're gonna work on the land use side, that's what we would be talking about, just for rail. Now, if we're talking about bus rapid transit, which is most of them, it's more along the lines of 2 to 3 story buildings just in the station areas themselves. I'm just giving you a sense of this. Any questions so far? Okay. And then, one of the things that's in the corridor profiles, so they look kind of like this. They lay out the concept. It identifies areas where communities have said, these are places where our planning and zoning could potentially shift. That's up to you, but that's what you told us. These are places where it could potentially shift. And so those are highlighted on these corridor profiles. It lays out, now I'm looking at the image on the right, it lays out some steps to start considering together. You can see there, incorporate the corridor into regional plans, assess early phase transit options and the like. And then, let me just get right to this. Then it lays out, these are preliminary, but it lays out preliminary station locations. The reason is it could help if a community thought, you know what, we want to kick the tires on changes to land use, but we need to know where. That's the idea with this. These are not set in stone. You as a community, when you have these station areas, you could adjust them as you see fit. And it's sort of, these are early stage discussions as we go from the vision of the Transit Fresh Look into next steps, if communities want to. No community is being forced to go to the next step. This is if you want to, we want to help you. That's the basic approach here with the Transit Fresh Look. And I don't need to get into these in detail, but we can pause on any of these if you want to. But we've got the station area locations. These will be distributed back to you after this meeting, and you can take a look at these areas. And the corridor profiles are on the website now. And I've got the web address at the end of this, I believe, and if it's not there, we will get it to you right after this meeting, just tomorrow. Rio Tinto Loop, potential station areas, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 affecting Harriman, 118th South, 1, 2, 3 relating to Harriman, the Mountain View Corridor, bus rapid transit line, and I won't endeavor to count because I'll get it wrong, but areas that you could potentially explore and consider as a community, working with the other communities that, would come together to say, yeah, we want to explore advancing this idea. If you thought, I'll remind you, if you thought, you know what, we are not willing or interested in exploring land use change, that doesn't mean a project is dead. But it does mean we have to lean in hard on the other two bases, which are building a market capture and raising money, which is not a small feat when you don't have the land use. I'm trying to just, be transparent about it. But there are other options if land use is not one of the options. Okay, and so we're working, this is the last slide, we're working to incorporate the Transit Fresh Look into the Wasatch Choice regional vision and transportation plan. Understand your priorities, which is why I'm gonna blessedly stop talking and listen, like what's resonating with you, and you might just need to think about it over time. And then in the coming weeks and months, we'd like to circle back with you and sort of understand what is of interest to you in terms of taking the vision and working on a corridor basis to advance ideas. All right, Jaren, did you want to add anything at this time?
No, I think you put it out there well, Ted. Recognizing this is a very aspirational plan and what it really takes to get implemented. I might just quickly note, UTA, in addition to the regional transportation plan, does a long-range long-range transportation plan. And so thinking about how we also help grow our transit services to the desired state, we're trying to look at that now. We'll be engaging with the community in Harriman City as well as part of that process. So recognizing, there may be some steps into this too as well. I think as Ted noted, as we build that transit market. So just want to recognize that, and then I just add that, getting to this point was a real a great process in coming together with the various stakeholders and seeing how we all came together to really come to this point in the process. So I just want to recognize that and thank WFRC for their efforts and the inclusion of all that participated in these efforts. So I'll stop there and be available for any questions you all may have.
And Jaren, you put it really well, and I'm gonna turn to Mayor Palmer and Nathan and Wendy and Blake and Bryce for comments, and then I have this propensity when I'm nervous to talk fast, and I think I did that this time, so I'm sorry for that.
Used to meet Ted, so they get.
Okay. But if there's anything that you want me to, talk about again or whatever, I can do that. I do want to note that one of the special things, really unusual things about this is the breadth of the partnership and the way that they came together to clearly articulate priorities. And that is, I can tell you, I've been in this business for 15 years, that this is extremely rare. And it's a great foundation to make the next step. So, Mayor, Nathan, Blake, and I'll open it up to questions.
4 years of meetings?
Yeah. It's been interesting to see it come together, right? Because we were all over the board, right? And I will say, even though there's two, I don't want to put this up too, but there were two red line extensions, right? And I think the group at one point had liked the southernmost route, and then there was a representative that showed up and very much took it the Bangor route, which I think there's a cost versus use analysis in there, and so I think that's actually where we decided to kind of coalesce around that, because we were told to coalesce around that a little bit, but.
And Mayor, let me note that, there's this articulation of a vision, and you're hitting on some things like, there's some different threads and iterations that happened here, and I just want to be clear, there will be more steps.
Right.
And it is possible that, if there's two options for a red line extension, one is on Bangor and one is southbound more through Harriman, it is possible that we all shift together away from Bangor. That is possible. So I think this is a vision, and visions are not set in stone.
And I think that's good, because looking at some of the plans here, there's been land use changes since this study's been completed. The athletic complex was a big change that wasn't even contemplated while this was going through. And so a stop would be very beneficial on the BRT for that use on 126. So yeah, keeping it fluid, because things are constantly changing.
When we talk,
Yeah, go ahead.
when we talk about BRT, are we talking about a dedicated lane?
Potentially. And those are the kinds of things that we would look at together. If it's dedicated lane, it increases the cost, you get more service benefits, you can bypass congestion, the land you support needs to be a little bit higher, and then if it's without that, if we can do a lot of interesting things like let buses skip the line at intersections without having dedicated lanes, but those are the kinds of things that there'd be a drill down in the coming years to try to work through that. So it's a great question.
Are you tracking ridership with our bus line that we just got, or who's
I haven't seen
keeping
any
track of that?
numbers.
UTA is.
UTA gets
They,
UTA.
I
Or are
asked,
they reporting back to?
I haven't
I
gotten any
asked
reports.
someone and they said it was higher than expected.
That's the last I heard.
I can reach out, but it's been.
Okay.
And a real number would be nice.
Yeah, cause we started that line
Jared
in
might know, does Jared know?
August.
Yeah, Jared, are you catching the question? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So yes, we do track ridership. I apologize. I am not prepared to share that. I'm happy to get that for you and report back or provide it to you as soon as possible.
Even a regular report on that would be interesting.
I was shocked how many people I see waiting at the bus stops at various locations on the line throughout the city. So I was just interested to know what that ridership looked like.
Do they track via ridership too?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yes, very much.
Good to compare.
Yeah.
I have a question maybe with regards to like the heavy lift with light rail, like that is, really, really expensive. And I'm sure there's some avenues, to explore, federally, with the Olympics, and I'm sure those are being explored. But like, in the realm of a possibility within the time frame that we're looking at, like, I mean, it's a heavy, but is it, what's the likelihood of that, do you think? What's your crystal ball?
Well, I will say
Take a-
UTA did tell us
Yeah.
federal dollars now are going towards bus rapid transit. Rail
Okay.
is not where federal dollars, correct me, that's kind of what we're hearing is federal dollars are pushing more towards, they're more flexible, they're cheaper, much
Yes.
cheaper. Federal dollars are gonna be tough to find for the.
Yeah, now, the federal formulas do potentially change over time. But it is absolutely the case that under the current guidelines, federal guidelines, it is not a competitive project.
Okay.
And part of that is that the level of, I'll say, land use support or station development in potential station areas is light. What it has going for it, of course, and I think part of the reason why the partnership was so interested in it is that it has two really strong connections on each end, Daybreak and the Point. And it closes the circuit of the network. But it would, a significant lift, I think without a dedicated level of effort from every affected community, it will not happen. That's the only way it can happen. And I think even in that path, I just want to be clear, I think we'd be looking at state funding support, not necessarily for all of it. But I think that we're all anxious to kind of drill down if you want to drill down. But if I think the communities take a close look at it and they think, this may not be something that I'm really willing to dig in and work hard, it's not gonna happen. That only happens if every affected community on that Bangor route, or if we go on the southern route, those communities, that's the way it can happen. For rail, for bus rapid transit, it's not as dire. There's more flexibility to get the bus rapid transit ideas to work. But the rail line, because of its expense, is really, like, it's like climbing Mount Everest, and I don't mean that, that's probably the wrong metaphor. But if we wanna climb Mount Everest, that we have to start running our laps right now and saving our money. It's the wrong metaphor, sorry for that.
But when you look at light rail time frame, you're not looking at before the Olympics.
No.
Or like, this is more like 20, 30,
Yeah.
like even 40 years out, or is it that far?
I can't give you a number,
If
but
it
it's
ever
not an Olympics, this is not an Olympics project. Now, it could be an Olympics project an early phase. So when we're talking about that sort of establishing a market and starting with a lower mode, like an express rapid bus that runs along Bangor, that could be in place before the Olympics. But the rail itself, I think, there's a number of steps that would need to unfold, and it's not a realistic proposition to have that
I mean,
before.
two of those three things are in place for that route right now, right? Along, I'd say 80% of that route, right? The rest of it is greenfield. The thing that's missing is money. There is no way that the state by itself can ever fund it.
Well, that's what we talked, that was our focus in there was the baby steps, right? We got the bus line now, we've got bus lines now, we're proving ridership more than, last we heard, more than what we anticipated. Now it's hopefully take more steps, a couple more bus lines maybe, and then I think that BRT, I think we all understood that BRT line in Utah County is, especially now with that Mountain View connection done, is realistic, very realistic to shoot a BRT from the red line down into Utah County, down the middle of Saratoga. I think that's a very realistic BRT line right now.
And then just one step back from my very pessimistic tone. Right, but that's just how these things work. This is a great step towards it. You have to have a plan in place for anything to get done. And you just outlined the length of time it takes to get a plan in place that everybody agrees upon. So this is a huge step towards it, right? The biggest step for any of them then is, all right, well, funding.
But this wasn't on plans 4 years ago. None of this was in plans. So that's why this is big. This was not contemplated 4 years ago.
Right. Yeah. So we wanna help, we really do, but I think it'll take local leadership, if I can put it that way, in order to advance these ideas. So we will be back in touch with you and other communities in the coming weeks and months. And would love to get a sense from you of, these are our priorities as Harriman. And then we can really, you all can swap that information with the communities near you.
I think that comes back to us, we almost need to put we've done the regional thing, but now what are our priorities as a council as well?
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Ted, thank you for making the drive down.
Oh, yeah, you bet, my
Councilmember.
pleasure.
Ted also sits on the city council in North Salt Lake. Yes. He understands this too. They saw him get blown up on a Facebook post the other day too, so he gets that side of things too.
Maybe that's something that, we should add to the strategic plan, types of things to identify.
She put it on her little agenda, yeah.
Yep. Okay, well, before we go in there, so Trevor doesn't have to stay if he doesn't want to, let's hurry and get.
What do you mean, Mayor?
Get the city status up.
Oh, he's a team player.
You got a kid at home.
Two. Wow.
Three. Okay, let's do 2.3 city status report, and that'll be wrap up work before.
Trevor. Good evening, everybody. Mostly I'm just excited to share our new colorway. Our new
Colors.
I noticed.
Yeah, I didn't realize how poorly colored the thing was before until we changed it. Like, oh, I can see the difference. Just a few quick highlights. We're permitting across all kinds of residential units, all different types. And on the sales tax side of things, we actually dipped down into a 70-30 split. So our highest share in a month coming from direct sales as opposed to that population piece. And this is the biggest proportion from direct sales we've had ever. So we continue to buy local, and that's great. And that's it.
Any questions?
On the housing, the session's almost over, but I think it would be good to put on there the number of units that are entitled. Right, so we're tracking how many permits have been pulled, et cetera, but versus how many have we entitled. I think to Tara's point, as we continue to have conversations with legislators and all the boards we're on, et cetera, this is a great go-to, but if we have that piece on there, that's an easy leave behind for some of those conversations.
Absolutely. I like that. Okay, thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, that wraps up our work meeting. We do have a closed, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll come back in here for closed after, but I'll look for a motion to adjourn the work meeting.
Motion to adjourn the city council work meeting.
Second, all in favor? Buddy?
I said cancel meeting, so no.
If we don't say goodbye,
We don't, yeah.
We don't say bye.